So where are you from?
37th and 8th.
Hell's Kitchen. Tough guy, huh?
I kind of want to start just, how much do you know about the character's life and fate in the comic incarnation? Because people talk about it a lot, and sometimes these characters will have the same name, they'll have some similarities. We don't know their fates necessarily, but it is quite a dramatic role in the comic lore, and I'm curious how much you know and if you've thought about it and you guys talk about it, etc.
For sure. I know everything because I've certainly read up a lot on Heather Glenn when I found out who I was playing. And then it was just been an experience of just discovery because you don't always know where things are going to go or what will eventually happen to the character. And so I don't, from my understanding of it, and certainly so far, we're pretty far off from the character as it is in the comic books.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like we're heading in the same direction, but you never know, right?
You never know. I mean, that's the thing. And the thing is, I never know either. So it's always fun to have the information and then be surprised as you get the scripts.
How has it been in general entering the world that they established that fans love? And I have a follow-up about that later because you have some experience with that. But just the experience of being the kind of the new face in a lot of ways to this kind of established cast.
Terrifying, terrifying. Because I don't think I've ever been involved in something where there was such an established fan base and audience and a character that is so beloved and other characters that are so beloved on the show. And then to be the new love interest, definitely a lot of pressure, but try not to think about it when you're working. You just do the best you can. But yeah, it's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, and the dynamic you have with Matt Murdock and with the character, like how you try to treat it just kind of like a lot of your stuff. This is comic book story and action, but a lot of your roles with all the leads, it's set almost more in the real world. And so I'm kind of curious to hear about like your grounding thing, your role, you're part of the grounding of the story in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
Has that been
and that's special. And it's also a huge lesson in life, right? Like expectations. When I first got wind of the project and when they came to me with a role, I was sure, because based on my dance background and my affinity for stunt work, I was sure that I was going to be playing, some superhero or something and get to do a lot of fighting. So when they told me that I'm playing a doctor and a psychiatrist, I was surprised and also pleasantly curious. I was like, what would it be like to be in this world and to play a human who doesn't have any special powers? And then the more that we got into the show and into the scenes, I really realized that Heather is sort of the heart of the show in some ways, and as far as like feeling the human toll of this world and really taking it on in that way, because other people get to go off into these different worlds and live out different personas, but she's just living in the real world and the effects that
no alter egos, no no mask.
No mask, no thing to like jump off and into, but just to be here right now with these people and feel into whatever's going on, which is I was into that.
And you referenced your background. You have like almost, it's like competitive sport dance, kind of, right? Am I wrong? Like, and so
for many years.
Yeah, so like that athleticism, all of that, like, can you talk a little bit about that and performing and the handoff and the crossover that in your background and like physicality in acting and where it, like, because I imagine it's a real asset to you.
It is an asset. There were some parts of it that were quite debilitating at first, to be honest, because I was also a ballerina, because to be a rhythmic gymnast, I had to study a lot of ballet. And when I first started acting, because ballerinas are so held and so straight, and
Feet must
uh,
be like
huh?
a lot of stuff on the feet and the toes,
A
right?
lot of stuff on the feet. But there's a lot of holding in, and it's certainly being a competitive gymnast. I viscerally remember going to competitions and feeling, let's say, scared, but then having to like suck it all up and hold it all in just so I can do the routine. And then you get to acting, and it's the opposite of that, because the audience wants you to reveal your vulnerability, to let them see your humanity and fear or whatever is going on. So to like open that up. And so it was definitely a big 180 that I had to do internally in some ways. But in other ways, yeah, it's been so beneficial. I mean, certainly my work ethic and focus, and because I love physical parts and always thinking about the physicality of a character, and where they live and how they conduct themselves in the world. And yeah, that it's so helpful for that. Yeah.
You said at the top, you said about taking it on, terrified, but I imagine that in a certain way, you're used to the fear or the adrenaline, and that like
Yeah,
stepping on set and the camera going on probably doesn't really like. I've talked to other athletes who moved into entertainment, and they
yeah,
do talk about kind of like, oh yeah, I know when it's time, you know.
yeah. And again, it's a little bit of a shift. So I also had to really change my relationship with fear, because, as I said, I had to learn like not to hold it in,
Hmm.
you know, because, and for certain parts, yeah, it's interesting to watch someone who's scared, but who's like
Mm-hmm.
on and pretending to be strong and confident. But for me, and even people that I've worked with, I remember wildly working with like Kirsten Stewart, and she was one of the first people that as an actor, I was like, oh, even though she's maybe uncomfortable in a moment, she's letting us see that she's not uncomfortable. She's not covering that up. And that's what translates to camera, because we're watching honesty and truth. And as an audience member, it's always so fascinating to watch someone be honest versus someone who's like trying
It's
to.
really interesting to hear someone talk about the dynamic between what you let out and what you don't, between what you're experiencing, because sometimes you're right. Sometimes a character is hiding how they really feel.
Yeah,
So like
yeah. So then you
it's
use
like
that.
a whole
And you're
weird
always,
comp.
yeah, you're always working with it. I mean, all I can say is I've learned to really appreciate my fear, and almost to the point where like if I'm not scared, then I'm worried.
Interesting. So tell me about in the ways that you can, some of the things in this season that scared you the most to take on in the moment.
I mean, the whole show scared me because of the fan base and being so close to Daredevil. But in the moment, there was a scene when I say to Matt, and I just played, so it's okay to talk about, but it's in episode 6, and Heather is talking about writing her new book, and she says, you think you can get me to talk to Frank Castle or Daredevil? And for some reason, even though I'm an actress, but I'm like, I know I'm talking to Daredevil. To be asking him to talk to Daredevil just required a lot of acting on my part. I was like, I hope my face is not giving away anything that
Oh,
um,
that's interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
that is interesting.
yeah.
Did you talk to him and the director? Did you talk to Brian? Like, what's the, did you say like, let me know? Or like, I mean, what's it like working with him too? He knows this character so well, right?
Charlie's fantastic. He's just a gem of a human and an actor, and it's just such a dream to work with him. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, it's just the way he was before we started work, the way he was during work, just how he's such a great lead, because so much of, and I found over the years in film and television and theater, honestly, whoever is the lead, like they set the tone for the production, because when they walk on set, the way they show up, the way they interact with the crew, with the other cast members, really provides the space.
Hmm.
I've been around leads that make everyone feel on edge and uncomfortable, and you're in a different world. And then when you have someone like Charlie, who's just so keen on making sure that everyone feels seen and heard and comfortable, and you can really play, and you can be present, and you can be explorative because it feels safe.
It's interesting to hear that. I want to ask you which ones, but I won't because you won't tell me anyway. But I'm curious about, not on the record. I'm curious about also with Vincent D'Onofrio, who is also like a legendary talent, and
Yeah,
from what I know, a really good guy. Like, and they show up. It seems like you all have. There's sometimes it's tangible, when you're watching and you're like, there's something coming across that feels positive and
yeah,
connected.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of the show, and I think why I'm happy to say why it's doing so well in this iteration and this season is just the ensemble of people have really gelled well together. And it's a really good group of,
It's just fun to watch, like right out.
yeah,
You're
not
just
just
like
like
right off the bat.
talented, but also really good people,
Yeah.
and that goes a long way. Like oftentimes when I watch things and I have friends and things, and I'll call them and I'll be like, your thing is fantastic. And also I could tell you were having such a great time. I could tell you love your crew. And they're like, yeah, I really do. Like we're a team,
Are there ever times when you're like, and again, you don't have to mention when, but you're just like, oh
when you
man,
watch something and you're like, I could tell.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, for
Sorry
sure.
about that one. Looks like it was rough. I want to ask you also, because you're talking about fan bases, and you experienced Star Wars in a certain
Yeah,
context, and the
yeah,
Acolyte, which was a fascinating show, an
yeah,
endeavor in a universe, and especially in your role, totally different way and prism
yeah,
through which we were
yeah,
looking at all of this. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that experience, but also now, like you have a familiarity of moving in and out of these very well-established spaces, and there's not a ton of people who've done that, and fans of all kinds are curious, I think, to know about the experience and what it's like. Like,
yeah. I loved making the Acolyte. I absolutely love Coral. I feel like that sandbox that, I remember walking on set the first day and I just felt like it was the greatest gift because the playground is so big and vast and there's just so much room to go as far as your imagination can take you. So yeah, and then to then have the juxtaposition of that and play a character that is so human and so rooted in reality and is so grounding. I feel so fortunate as an actor to play such two opposite energies and storylines. It's a real gift. I mean, it's a
I
real.
I did not. It took me a minute to realize it was you. I was like, oh wait, because like, and it's not just the horns and stuff. Like, like it's such a different character.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you guys really built something different in Star Wars in the Acolyte. Can you talk about that process and also like the reception and I'm curious, like nobody knows when things come back or anything like that, but did you guys know you were building something that was going out there? That was like, we're doing something a little different here, and like we're
Yeah.
on a limb.
It's definitely felt different. I worked with Leslie Headland before in a project, and she just offered the role to me because we had the working relationship. And she's such a renegade and such a smart, brave filmmaker in my mind, and really pushes boundaries and tries to see things from um, a deeper perspective. So just knowing that she was making the show, I knew that it would be different and special. And um, and I find that sometimes those things are not always universal and not for everyone. And I know I don't read any of the comments or even I try not to read reviews that much. So I'm not
Those are
I
good
know there's like
decisions.
some controversies, but yeah, I was really grateful to be a part of that.
Yeah, you're coming back to Daredevil for a second. There's been a history of therapists
Yeah.
that on TV and in movies, and the
Yeah.
way that is a window for audiences into characters. And I'm curious how you talked about it with the directors and with writing and with the cast, kind of that, like, you provide in your role. It's like I think of The Sopranos a lot, but it's all throughout TV and movies. You
Yeah.
provide opportunity for us to see things. How do you guys approach those scenes and that prism for us to see
I
the
I
character?
really honestly try to approach them as a therapist would. I really did. I was like, I have nothing to do here. I mean, it's a lot. Doing nothing is a lot to do, providing a space. And I really saw Heather and her office as a space holder and a safe space for these people to really unravel, reveal, explore. And that involves a lot of active listening and a lot of presence, which being present is really hard. Being very, very, very present with people and then tapping into their energies, right? Because that's like what a great therapist does. They're intuitive
Mm.
and they try to mirror back and reflect. And sometimes and active listening is also really hard because it requires one to be, it's like listening for like an animal in the forest almost, it's like it has to be so laser focused. And yeah, when you have actors that we had coming into those rooms, whether it was Vincent Nayellet, or the actor playing the muse. I'm not saying his name because I don't know if it's out.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
obviously
don't
kind
worry.
of,
I don't want to get you in trouble.
yeah.
When you
But
are
yeah, yeah.
holding that space, you're saying it, you're actually like talking about it like you actually were conducting therapy, which is
That's
really
how I try to
interesting.
treat those sessions. I was like, I know what I say back. I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind, but really, I'm just going to listen and hold the space and react and live off of them. And they give so much that, you know, there there wasn't much I had to do other than really be present.
And they're playing people who have like real darkness. So it's like, and
They're
I'm,
playing people with real darkness who are really at the same time trying to get to some kind of truth and connect on some kind of level. And that is and also are so careful about not revealing everything, but finding ways to talk about it in a way that feels honest. And that's so fascinating.
it is because we never saw like the Joker go to therapy, like
Right.
really humanizing. And I'm
Yeah.
curious how, without, too much detail, how does it evolve where the show's going? Like that we're seeing this humanity to villains, traditional villains, in your character's space, and like that's different. That's not something we're used to a lot.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I can't give away too much, but the one thing I can say is I think the brilliance of the show and what I respect about it so much is that yes, we're dealing with fantastical elements. And we've been on such a mission to really ground it and bring it to a level of truth that exists in the world. And it's really dealing with themes that I think are very relevant and relatable and and posing so many questions that are necessary and open up a conversation I think people really think about within themselves and amongst their community. So I feel like it's really shedding light on things in a way that is important, and to me that's always the greatest form of um art filmmaking. Just when you can live in a sandbox that feels sort of um fantastical but is then also just so honest and grounded and reflects society and humanity back to itself in some ways. I think
Yeah,
that
we have so much of this sort of genre out there, and we
yeah,
have for a while. So seeing something where a lot of it is taking place in the real world, and it's New York
yeah.
City, and it's
Well, that's
grounded.
why I think people are responding to it in such a great way because they don't feel like they're being duped. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like,
Um, do you wish you could get into the action a little bit? The fighting? Do you want to put on a mask or a cape?
always, always. I like that aspect of things. I got to do it in some work before. Hopefully, we'll get to do it in some work after.
The thing that the other thing that I'm kind of curious about with this show and with the character is you have a moment, it really struck me in the first episode when you talk to him. I forgot the context, but it's like the end of the date or something, and you say something about this is not me, the therapist, kind of thing. And you
Oh,
talk a
that's
lot about playing the therapist as a therapist, but like you've decided she does have like a mask, right? Kind of like she does have a
yeah.
duality.
Yeah, well, it's like, yeah, that's from episode 1 when he walks me home and
Right,
I'm
right.
not your therapist, Matt. And yeah, I mean, I think that's yet one another aspect of the show that's so great, you know, revealing what someone like what a therapist goes through. I mean, it's like people, I've been at parties where there's a doctor there, like a dermatologist, and someone is like, hey, can you like look at my thing? Like, what do you think, this is something serious? And they're like, I'm not working right now. So it's like, um, yeah, this idea that yes, I'm a therapist and yes, my job is to read people and help people and listen to people, but like there's got to be a time when I like take that hat off and get to just be a human with all my flaws and curiosities and demons and whatever, you know. Because I think there's also this idea that like, well, if you're a therapist, if you know what's best, then you know what's best. But sometimes therapists don't know what's best for them.
They're
You know?
messed up too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have time for one more, so I just want to ask you, you've got like what would you say is, without details, what do fans have like in store for them for the rest of the season? Like how would you describe it like emotionally or like what?
I mean, I'm so excited for the last 3 episodes. I think they're epic. And I think they're just so full of everything as far as entertainment, heartbreak, um, extreme brutal violence. I mean, all of it. Like it's just like you've got the whole gamut, and the way that it's all comes together, or the way that it all unravels, I shall say, is quite exciting. I'm really looking forward to people seeing those three. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, now so am I and so are we. Congratulations on it. You're doing a great job
Oh,
and
thank
you rose to the occasion. So thanks so much for taking the
thank you.
time and
Thanks,
have a
George.
great rest of your day.
All right, you too. Bye.